My grandmother fed 10 people on a pizza that cost her less than a day's wages in 1936. And the recipe she used is still cheaper than 2 frozen pizzas at Walmart today. I priced out her full deep dish last week at my local grocery store, every ingredient down to the salt. The total came to $13.40, and it fed my entire family with leftovers. But here's what surprised me. The Depression didn't force her to make a worse pizza. It forced her to make a better one. And once you understand why, you'll never buy dough again. I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. The dough, the sauce, the cheese trick that cuts your cost almost in half, and the one step that everybody skips that Nonna considered non-negotiable. By the end, you'll have the exact recipe, the exact shopping list, and the exact price of every component. First, you need to know who this woman was, because the recipe makes no sense without her. My Nonna, Rosa, came from Abruzzo to the south side of Chicago in 1929. Worst possible timing. Her husband worked the rail yards when there was work, which some months meant 6 days a week and some months meant none. 9 people lived in that apartment, 2 bedrooms, and every Friday, no matter what the week had looked like, she made pizza in a battered steel roasting pan because a round pizza feeds 4 and a rectangular pan feeds 10. That pan is the first lesson, and it costs you nothing. You do not need a deep dish pizza pan. Nonna never owned one. You need any metal pan with sides at least 2 inches tall, and the 9 by 13 pan already sitting in your cabinet is honestly perfect. Chicago deep dish was born in pans exactly like it, restaurant kitchens using what they had. The heavy dark metal matters more than the shape, because dark metal absorbs heat and fries the bottom of the crust in oil. That fried bottom is the whole signature of deep dish. Remember that word, fried. We'll come back to it. Now the dough, and this is where the Depression logic starts working for you instead of against you. A modern recipe will tell you to buy bread flour, maybe 00 flour at $7 a bag. Nonna used the cheapest all-purpose flour she could get, because that's what the relief store carried, and it turns out that's actually what you want. Deep dish crust is not chewy Neapolitan crust. It's closer to a biscuit, tender and short, and lower protein flour makes it more tender, not less. The 5-pound bag of store-brand all-purpose costs about $2.60, and this recipe uses roughly a pound of it. Call it 55 cents of flour. Here's the full dough, and I want you to actually write this down. 3½ cups of all-purpose flour, 1¼ cups of warm water, warm like bath water, not hot, 2 teaspoons of sugar, a packet of yeast, which is 2¼ teaspoons if you buy it in a jar, and the jar is the better deal at around $6 for the equivalent of 16 packets, 1½ teaspoons of salt, and then the part that makes it deep dish, a 1/4 cup of oil in the dough itself, plus a 1/4 cup of cornmeal. The cornmeal is pure Depression engineering. Corn was the cheapest calorie in America in the 1930s, so cooks stretched wheat flour with it constantly. And in this crust, it stopped being a compromise and became the point. It gives the crust that faint crunch and that yellow color you see in the famous Chicago pizzerias. Uno's crust has been rumored to contain cornmeal for decades. Nonna was doing it because a pound of cornmeal cost pennies. Same technique, opposite reason. Mix the water, sugar, and yeast first, and give it 10 minutes. If it foams, your yeast is alive. If it doesn't, stop, because you're about to waste a pound of flour on a brick. And this recipe has no expensive ingredient you can afford to sacrifice twice. Then add everything else and knead it for just 5 minutes. Not 10, not 15, 5. This is the step people get wrong in the other direction. Long kneading builds gluten. Gluten builds chew, and chew is the enemy of this crust. You want it just barely smooth, still a little shaggy, like biscuit dough that went to night school. Cover it and let it rise for an hour, and while it rises, we make the sauce, because the sauce is where Nonna would physically take the jar out of your hands. A jar of pizza sauce runs $4 to $5 and covers one pizza. A 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes runs about $1.80 and makes more sauce than this pizza can hold. That single swap saves you $3, and the canned version tastes better, which sounds backwards until you look at what's actually in the jar: sugar, gums, and paste. The can is just tomatoes, but deep dish sauce has a rule that flat pizza sauce doesn't, and it's the mistake that ruins most homemade attempts. You cannot use watery sauce because this pizza bakes for 40 minutes with the sauce sitting on top, and thin sauce turns the whole thing into soup. So you cook the can down. Empty it into a pan with 2 cloves of garlic, a teaspoon of dried oregano, a pinch of red pepper flakes, half a teaspoon of salt, and a glug of oil, and simmer it for 20 minutes until a spoon dragged through it leaves a trail that doesn't close up. Nonna added one more thing: a teaspoon of sugar, and she'd never admit it to anyone from the old country. American canned tomatoes were more acidic than what she grew up with. She adapted. That's the whole spirit of this recipe in 1 teaspoon. So your sauce is simmering and your dough is rising, which brings us to cheese, the most expensive line on this receipt, and the place where the real money is won or lost. Fresh mozzarella is the wrong cheese here, and not just because it's $6 a ball. It's too wet. It waters out in a long bake. What you want is low moisture mozzarella, the block kind, and you want the store brand block, never the pre-shredded bags. Pre-shredded cheese is coated in cellulose to keep it from clumping, which is a polite way of saying wood pulp, and that coating stops it from melting into that molten pool you're picturing right now. A 1-pound block of store brand low moisture mozzarella costs about $4.50, and 1 pound is genuinely enough for a pizza that feeds 10, because deep dish puts the cheese on the bottom, directly on the crust, where every ounce of it counts. And that flipped order is not a gimmick. Cheese on the bottom, toppings in the middle, sauce on top exists because of the long bake. Put sauce on the crust like a normal pizza, and 40 minutes of oven time gives you a soggy floor. Put cheese down first, and it melts into a waterproof layer that protects the crust, while the sauce on top slowly concentrates. The structure is the recipe. Nonna understood this the way she understood everything in that kitchen, through the arithmetic of not being able to afford a failure. Now the step everybody skips, the one I told you she considered non-negotiable. Once your dough has risen, you press it into the pan, and before it goes anywhere near the pan, you pour a full 1/4 cup of oil into that pan first. Not a brush of oil, a pour tilted to coat the corners. This is the frying I promised we'd come back to. The bottom of a real deep dish crust doesn't bake. It shallow fries in the pan, and that 1/4 cup is what turns the underside gold and crisp while the inside stays tender. People skip it because it looks like too much. It is exactly enough. Nonna used the cheap olive oil, the big tin, and about 30 cents worth goes into this step. Press the dough across the bottom and 1 inch up the sides. Then, and this matters, let it sit in the pan another 20 minutes before you build on it. Pressed dough wants to shrink back. Rested dough stays put. While it rests, your assembly line. Slice or grate the mozzarella and lay all of it across the dough floor. If you're adding anything, this is its layer. Nonna's Friday version usually had nothing, because Fridays were meatless in her house. But when there was a little money, she'd scatter half a pound of browned Italian sausage, which today adds about $2.75. Even with the sausage, you're at $13.40 total. Without it, you're near $11. Then the sauce goes over everything, all of it, spread to the edges. Last, and this is the finish she'd do with the flat of her hand, a dusting of the cheap grated Parmesan from the green can, maybe 40 cents worth, right on top of the sauce, where the oven toasted into a savory crust. Into the oven at 425 degrees, bottom rack, for 35 to 40 minutes. Bottom rack is not optional. The heat source is down there, and down there is where your crust is frying. You're done when the top edge of the crust is deep brown, and the sauce looks thick and dark at the corners. And then comes the hardest instruction in this entire video. You wait 15 minutes before cutting it. I know. A deep dish straight from the oven is structurally lava, and cutting it early dumps the whole cheese layer out of the first slice. 15 minutes lets it set into slices that hold. Nonna enforced this by making everyone sit down and say grace, which in a family of 9 took, conveniently, about 15 minutes. So let's do the receipt, because I promised you real numbers. Flour, 55 cents. Cornmeal, about 20 cents. Yeast, roughly 40 cents from the jar. Oil for the dough in the pan, about 60 cents. The can of crushed tomatoes, $180. Garlic, oregano, sugar, salt, pepper flakes. Call it 70 cents altogether, and less if your pantry already holds them. The mozzarella block, $4.50. The Parmesan dusting, 40 cents. The optional sausage, $2.75. That's $13.40 with meat, $10.65 without, for a pizza that weighs close to 5 pounds and cuts into 10 fat squares. A single large deep dish delivered in Chicago runs $35 before tip. You just made a bigger one for a third of that. But the reason I made this video isn't really the $13.40. It's that every clever thing in this recipe, the cornmeal, the canned tomatoes cooked down, the block cheese, the pan she already owned, exists because a woman with 9 mouths to feed refused to treat cheap as a synonym for worse. She never once called this a budget recipe. It was just Friday. Rosa died in 1994, and the roasting pan went to my mother, and the recipe went to a note card, and the note card nearly went into a dumpster during a move in 2011, which makes me wonder about your family. Somewhere in it, almost certainly, there was a cook who did this same quiet math, and their version of this recipe either got written down or it didn't. If it did, I'd genuinely love to read it. So put it in the comments, the dish and where it came from. And if it didn't get written down, maybe this weekend, while the dough rises, you call whoever still remembers it. Next week, I'm making her Sunday sauce, the one that starts with the cheapest cut in the meat case. And if this pizza taught you anything, you already know that cut will taste the best. Word count, 2004.